I have people who get on my case calling me a Putin apologist, saying that I'm really just somehow carrying a torch for Vladimir Putin and for the Russians and the Kremlin and all that. And well, I've said that I don't support anyone per se, but the truth is that in a sense I do support Putin and the Kremlin and the Russians right now for the simple fact that they are one of the forces out there that are opposing this massive evil that is the juggernaut that is the Western deep state. Call it what you want to call it. The establishment that seems to be in our time pushing everything that is evil and opposing everything that is good. You know, I was just thinking about this the other day. Like there with the left and the right, there's always some kind of dialectic, right? You can't just say the right is right all the time and the left is wrong all the time. You've got to, even if you do occupy one side of that polarity, or believe that polarity exists and that it is important, you have to, at the same time, acknowledge that these are plastic terms that change over time. What it meant to be a liberal in the 1970s and the 1980s is not what it means to be a liberal today, and what it meant to be conservative in the 70s and 80s is not what it means to be a conservative today. So, that's a whole big wide field of discussion that one could go into for uh, a long, long time over many different possible subjects. But I want to stick to um, something in particular that um, you know that uh, I hope will explain to some of you who are exasperated with me uh, seeming to be a Putin fan or a Putin apologist or what have you. I want to just, although I know some of you are also on my side or see it the way that I do, but I want to just explain to everybody out there, anybody who's interested in hearing it, why I am inclined to see anyone, if there's anyone out there um, who's opposing this, the current establishment of the Western uh, deep state or of Western power and what it consists of, in its highest echelons these days. Well, it strikes me that today you have the worst of both worlds. You have the state, you have the establishment, you have the powers that be pushing the worst of both worlds. In previous ages, that was not so much the case. Um, the establishment has always done evil things. It's always done rotten things. It's always, um, I think it has always been a force to be opposed on some level in some ways, even at the times when it hasn't been thoroughly soaked in evil and rottenness as it is today. So I'm always one for questioning authority. I'm always one for quote speaking truth to power unquote. But what do we have? What do we have today? We have what the right was. Well, yeah. Let me start by talking about it this way. What we had 30 years ago, when the Cold War was still on, what we had then was an establishment that was a deep state, or whatever we want to call it. I'll just call it the deep state, even though I know some people object to that term, or don't like that term, or think that it's been hackneyed or overused. I'm just going to use it here just as a shorthand. You can substitute some other term for it if you'd like. But 30 or 40 years ago, the American deep state, the Western deep state, was in the hands of the military-industrial complex, and was pushing the Cold War, and was favoring the perpetration of coups in many countries across the world, from Iran to Chile to other places, and doing lots of evil things, in the name of opposing communism. So, what did the deep state consist of back then? Well, it was wrong for its behavior, I believe, in these, in pushing evil programs like MK Ultra, trying to take over the media through Operation Mockingbird. I forgot the name of it there for a second. And it was doing evil in various countries across the world, through groups like the CIA and others. It was wreaking all kinds of havoc. But at the same time, what the deep state was doing, what they represented value-wise, they were against degeneracy, at least in principle, or in appearance. They probably had a lot of degenerates in their service, like J. Edgar Hoover for one, and who was that satanic general who worked at the Presidio in San Francisco? I can't think of his name, but you know who I'm talking about. And others like them. So there was probably hypocrisy there, but in an important way anyway. The establishment and the media that supported the establishment, the media that was essentially doing the establishment's bidding in many ways. Although in the past, the media was perhaps not quite so craven in its submissiveness to the deep state as it is now. Now it's basically state-run media. It's running propaganda for the Pentagon, running propaganda for the State Department, running propaganda for the CIA. That's all you get if you read any newspaper that could be described as part of the legacy or mainstream media, and every network television news body, and many of the larger entities and venues that you find on the internet as well. In the past, I don't think there was quite as much of a total knuckling under, to this Pravda-like extent. What I've said before, and I'll say again, just like what Pravda was to the Soviet Union in the Soviet Union's heyday. You wouldn't pick up an issue of Pravda or any Soviet journal and expect to see the truth about what's going on with the Soviet Union. You'd be very foolish to do that. And people understood that, even within the Soviet Union. People, I think, are increasingly understanding it about the current state of the Western world, and the Lugenpresse, Mockingbird Media that operates here. But anyway, in the past, there could be said to be this dialectic in any case, where you had the establishment was described as right wing, and they were infiltrating left wing groups like the COINTELPRO. They were infiltrating civil rights groups and anti-war groups, and so forth. But what you did have among the establishment then was that, yes, they pushed for war. They were often deeply homicidal, often genocidal in the actions that they took, the wars that they waged, and so forth. But they were at the same time anti-degeneracy. You had to be a complete heterosexual if you wanted to be in the armed forces, and if you were found to be actively something else, they would boot you out. They didn't want you there. That didn't change until getting into the 90s, but that's of course getting into the time period that I've talked about before. Where things began to change, where the West and America in particular began to turn on the citizenry that it had always at least pretended to serve and pretended to respect during the Cold War years, when there was a Cold War to win, when there was a communism to be defeated. So back then, if you want to look at how the dialectic worked, the right was, or what could be called the right, was more in power. Those who called themselves right-wing or conservative were pro military power, pro military might. They looked with suspicion at people who went on and on about free speech and who were critical of aspects of the establishment, that were groups like the civil rights movement or anti-war groups. They were down on all of that. They were pro-wars, my country, right or wrong. That was the vibe. But at least there was an opposition to degeneracy amongst all of the needless warmongering. Okay, and the left back then, yes, they were pushing this new sexual morality that was undermining the family, and that was that would end up scarring so many people, so many kids growing up, in divorced homes, or the increase of children being born out of wedlock, the increase of different types of perversity, and the tendency to just look at all of that and just be, well, this is freedom. People should be, people shouldn't just be tied down to these bourgeois standards of sexual morality. Right? That was what people on the left said. Said they were bad in that way, and yet the left was good in the sense that they actually opposed the bad things that the military-industrial complex was doing. They were bad in that they opposed the homicidal / genocidal aspects of the deep state and of the military-industrial complex. So there was good and bad on both sides. But now, somehow, the two sides merged to form what is today's version of the deep state, today's incarnation or iteration of the deep state. And today the establishment is wrong in every way. Wrong in every way. Because not only are they still pushing for the same things they always pushed for, Not only are they still wanting to wage war across the globe, wanting to overthrow any government that wants to be independent, that doesn't want to be under their influence, that wants to do their own thing. Not only are they still doing that, which they never stopped doing that, but now they're also pro-degeneracy, and they're in favor of going after people who are anti-degeneracy. They're still anti-free speech, which they always were, but in the past they were anti-free speech against against perverts and people that they didn't like, people who were saying things that they didn't like, or pornographers, or people that they thought were obscene. Whereas today, they're going after anybody who uses slurs occasionally, or people who want to live off grid, people who want to be independent of the system domestically, not just we're not just talking about foreign governments, foreign entities, foreign powers, where there was always this hostility towards groups that were not backed by America. There was always this proclivity to want to overthrow them and replace them with their goons, their own puppet governments. But now they want to do that domestically too. So we have an increasingly totalitarian state. And I know we're coming up on July 4th, but I find it like, can we really talk about freedom here in America today? Is there really freedom anymore? Except by default, except in certain cases, and in those cases where there is freedom, it's not because of anything that any self-consciously American entity is doing. It's because people are rallying against their increased tyranny. So this is the thing that I think is the most, if you want to talk about being black-pilled, if you want to talk about being discouraged or demoralized, this is the thing that makes one most likely to feel this sense of demoralization, is when one becomes aware that the establishment is bad in every way imaginable. Whereas in the past they at least were promoting the traditional American family, and traditional morality and so forth, while at the same time doing all of these highly immoral things in their foreign policy. Now they're still doing all those highly immoral things in their foreign policy, and they're promoting degeneracy on the domestic front. And they're saying if you're somebody who, I don't know, has a "Don't Tread on Me" flag on your front porch, or has a "Don't Tread on Me" bumper sticker, or something like that, or if you use certain forbidden terms like freedom or free speech, or various other things that you use these kinds of terms that you would think would be completely uncontroversial, but now they immediately get you registered. They immediately get you put on some kind of watch list. So again, the worst of everything is represented by the establishment right now, and that's why the establishment right now must go, must be taken down, must cease to be, and we must strive to make it so. Thank you for watching.